right now, the standard of truth is being tailored by big media corporations. Things like Fox and CNN. It is being backed up by so many Republicans, Democrats, who is wishing for those media to create a truth that is based on their personal interest, ladies and gentlemen. And we are going to exactly change that in governments and of the House. So what are we going to do? We are going to put cap on media corporations' income. It means if in status quo, media like CNN can get unlimited income, like trillions of dollars coming from advertisement, clickbaits, and so on and so forth, in our side of the House, we are not going to allow that. We are going to cap the profit, for example, like 20% of the current profit, ladies and gentlemen, right? And if you exceed that particular cap, the money is going to be allocated to small media corporation by this independent body, ladies and gentlemen. For example, like in Indonesia, we are going to allocate it to Tirto to make sure that we are going to be able to equalize the gap between those big corporations and the small one in status quo right now, right? So in your side of the House, more likely you are going to have lots of capital that you're going to share to your dividends, and we do not want that, ladies and gentlemen. We are going to exactly shift that particular allocation to cross-subsidize media who really need it the most in status quo right now. So in my speech, I'm going to address two questions. Number one, why status quo basically distorts the function of media. Second of all, why only in our side of the House you can change the behavior of media. So first, substantive. Why opposition is going to distort the function of media. So ideally, what is the function of media? Which is to give information toward the people. But what is the manifestation of this particular information that media delivers to people? First of all, it sets the standard of truth to people, right? It shapes the mindset of people. For example, people will see immigration policy has to be as restrictive as possible as the standard of truth because it is being tailored by Republican states right now through Fox News, right? But second of all, it is also used as a basis for people to create important decisions for their life. For example, to decide who to vote in the next election, what kind of economic policy is going to affect me, right? How you are going to start political discourse and so on and so forth, right? Therefore, it is so detrimental towards the people because at the end, people on the ground are exactly the one who feels most effect coming from this kind of information that the media is being delivered. But why then, if it's not kept, that kind of function is not being served? Because first of all, we take a look at the fact that there is a huge inequality between big media like CNN and small media companies like Democracy Now! Or Jacobin and so on and so forth, right? But why then it's harmful? Because first of all, the market is already monopolized by big media, right? For example, CNN and Fox have more wider coverage as opposed to those smaller media, right? For example, they can simply distribute free news towards people on the ground. Meanwhile, if you want to read more of Jacobin news, you need to have subscription and so on and so forth, right? Those people are exactly the people who set standard for truth of the viewers, ladies and gentlemen. For example, the kind of narrative that they're saying is that immigration policy has to be as restrictive as possible. Protection policy is the best way to protect America. Hillary Clinton is so evil without having any logical explanation as to why that claim is something that is true, ladies and gentlemen. Because when you are talking about those media, there is no process of contrasting the cons and pros of that particular issue, right? Because usually, because they understand that they earn so many money, they're usually using rhetoric that is basically left unproven, right? Because they are exploiting the individual's vulnerability on the ground, ladies and gentlemen. But second of all, why then monopoly is something that is bad? Because it is going to manifest into continuously airing news for 24 hours per day to change the mindset, to brainwash individuals in Russell that Trump is the best president as well, right? Or maybe you are going to resort to things like acquiring smaller media to make sure that your fact cannot be challenged by any other media, right? Even worse, those companies are exactly sending the narrative that if other media is challenging me, basically they're only delivering fake news. Basically, it is just hoaxes and so on and so forth. Because take a look at the fact that who plays role behind this particular media. It's the donors, right? It's the people like Hillary Clinton and Trump who want to invest in big corporations because it is much more fruitful than them. But why then, third of all, monopoly is something that is so harmful, right? Because in opposition to the House, people is going to be one-sided, right? Because they're only forced to digest information based on one perspective only. Because it is going to translate into political bias, not willing to listen to others' political ideology, right? And the decision of people is not entirely based on their own decision, but it is being tailored by the dirty politics of the donors like Jared Kushner in your side of the House. The outcome is this: people will no longer have the ability to understand what is the objective truth. Because at best, in opposition to the House, you might have political discourse, but it is not going to be effective because it is just going to be a battle of facts. Like for example, people who read Fox will never listen to people who read CNN, right? Because they're going to say that I don't trust your source because it is basically a fake news and so on and so forth, right? It means it is less likely that in opposition to the House, you are going to engage with others, right? Because you don't even trust their basis of claim, ladies and gentlemen. At least in the House, we are going to have balance of information, right? Now, smaller media like Jacobin is also going to get spotlight too, ladies and gentlemen, right? Because it is going to be seen as equally credible. In our proposal. But before proceeding to my second argument, anything.
So why naturally it has to be jumping? For instance, in terms of politics in US, the most crucial part would be Democrats and Republicans. And we don't only have Fox, but we also have CNN.
Okay, exactly, right? When you are talking about smaller state in USA, it is basically dominated by CNN only, right? But you always disregard the information coming in the local news, right? You always disregard, because exactly, right? Ilham cannot point out the example of small media because it doesn't exist in status quo right now. Because already have CNN and Fox, right? So second argument, why then we are going to change the behavior of media, right? Because when it is not cap, they are going to find as many income as possible, right? It means they are going to resort to things like number one, clickbait, having sensational headlines and so on and so forth. Or second of all, they are going to do advertisement like buying metadata coming from Facebook and so on and so forth. The conclusion is this: when you allow them to get profit as much profit as possible, they are going to resort to things that is unnecessary and even dangerous, right? But why then this is harmful? Because number one, it creates a bad competition. To the fact that in South Korea right now, Al Jazeera start to follow its bad trend by creating AG Plus that is too simplistic. It shows to you that right now the good media is also going to follow this kind of practical bad trend coming that is being tailored by Fox and CNN. But second of all, you're also going to force people to update news as fast as they can, right? It is going to be bad because it creates a speculation within the people. For example, when there is a terrorist attack, you are going to report it to the people without examining the true facts on the ground, right? It means you're going to allow people to assume the terrorist attack that has happened, right? You also allow bad media to spew the narrative as well in your side of the house. But why then we're going to change that in our side of the house? Because the money is limited, right, in our side of the house. It means you're going to invest things that is much more important. For example, investigative journalism and so on and so forth. All they have to do is to cooperate with local journalists in Middle East, and we think it is something that is feasible in our side of the house. But second of all, even if those people is going to resort to bad things like advertisement, more likely it is only going to be done by one particular corporation, right? Because in our side of the house, other corporation is going to be forced to find another comparative advantage, and that can only happen when you create gap within this more media corporation. For all those reasons, we're very practical.
Opposition side will not support the cap. We think that income is okay for it to be big. We think that having a great income is worth it. We are okay with some media being so much bigger than others because we think that there are some things that only a big media can do, and these things are important. Two quick rebuttals. Number one will be idea of a too powerful media that shapes the mindset. Well, we think that these are things that don't need this policy to solve, ladies and gentlemen. Three things. Number one, we think that the existence of fact checker institution like Associated Press, that open fact checking service, allows the opportunity of counterbalance. We think that the consciousness exists ever since the rise of Trump. We think that the people are less likely to want to be hoodwinked again. Even in Europe, there's a legislation to pass and law to ban fake news. Secondly, note that there exists competition, ladies and gentlemen. There are more than one big media institution out there. CNN is not alone, ladies and gentlemen. There are BBC, ABC, Sky News, Al Jazeera. Yes, we agree, there are bubbles, but we don't understand why is it that there's suddenly push people to let go of that bubble, ladies and gentlemen. We think that it is easier to solve bubble if you go with our side. Why? Because the existence of many medias that are big means that it is more likely to have a penetration to the other side, ladies and gentlemen. Because being big, give you the opportunity to advertise on the other side. This is the case with Washington Post. They are literally paying for advertisement in the feeds of right-wing people, and this is something that you can only do in the event that you are big at the end of the day. But thirdly, the existence of ethical code of conduct. This is to engage with their argument as well. Note that this guarantees that the interests of those they are behind will not be as manifested, right? And we're more than willing to also strengthen ethical code of conduct. This is the case with Washington Post again. Jeff Bezos owns Washington Post, but the strengthening of the ethical code of conduct that's done in the United States of America allow Amazon to still be criticized as Slumberton. So we need that blue power media can be countered without a cap. Secondly, quickly on the content of small media. Now I know Jacobin is left, but note that it is not the only left-wing media that exists that are big. We still have the likes of the Guardian. We still think that if you would like to have alternative view, it can still be catered with big media that are also moving. New York Times still remain in center. The Economist is now moving back to the center. The Guardian is now moving more and more left. We still think that being big does not equate to content. Okay, three things here that I want to talk about in argument. Number one, quality of content, why we have it so much better. Number two, range of distribution. And number three, quality of journalism. Let's begin with the quality of content. Because we see that big income will give you the ability to give even higher content quality. Now, why is this important? First, I want to talk about the problems in terms of quality of content that we're going to solve. Number one, I think we're talking about news content. Because we're talking about news from rural area or from other countries that are much harder to get. We're talking about news that come from war zone areas that have insurgency and high terrorist organization. Why is this important? Again, as something that they can see, this is relevant to your decision making, because we want people to be informed when they decide on IR and economy, right? The problem is that income cap will come with a trade-off. That is to say that in certain areas you will be unable to focus as much, or at least you have much less coverage, ladies and gentlemen. Why? Because in these areas like Lebanon, for example, you have much harder transportation channel. In areas like Syria, for example, it is much more dangerous because of the rise of terrorism and also rebels, right? It means that these are areas in which you have a high amount of bodyguard and also local people to also engage with you, right? And these are things that require cash. We think that cash can be utilized for it, and they can just jump up and say that, oh, it will be considered as well. No, that crisis is time sensitive and it can appear suddenly, ladies and gentlemen. That's why you have a huge income to get it. You have always a reserve that you can utilize to bring your journalists to people, to area with high war zones as well, right? We did that BBC, for example, under-investigate the Middle Eastern crisis compared to Al Jazeera. We did that adding a cap was to make them more unable to actually send the journalists with bodyguard and also transportation there. But secondly, in terms of medium of content, and this will engage with AG+, right? We did that both sides would like to have people informed. The issue is that people have busy lives, ladies and gentlemen, and people generally are bored with media. And that's why when they open TV or when they open radio, they want escapism. It means that media is currently less exciting. So the biggest concern in this debate is how to make media at least exciting enough that people are still willing to watch and see media. We think that it's generally twofold, both of which is very expensive. Number one, catchy video. Because videos that are informative but at the same time catchy is the one that's received the most, right? These are videos with high production quality, assembled together. And this is the CNN strategy that assembled many great shots. Of course, this will increase the budget in videography and also video editing. That demands a very high salary for them. And that's why you need to have a more income at the end of the day. But second is on the programs inside. You need to go beyond the classic news anchor reading news, ladies and gentlemen. But the program that you need to have, if you want the people to be more interested, should be program like BBC Hardcore or Al Jazeera. It's a story that brings mediator that is funny or charming or charismatic, and the issues that hiring these people is very, very expensive as well. That's why we need to have more income so that you can have more and more of these type of people hired to guarantee that your program is more exciting than ever. Secondly, range of distribution. We think that more income can bring media access to rural area and poorer area. Why is this important? Because we agree that national and local issues are important and people need to be knowledgeable on them. Why is this lacking? So how do media get time slot on TV or radio, right? Media like BBC or CNN pay AT&T or Time Warner or radio programs so that their program or their channel are put in. The issue is that this rural area demands a very high price for it, right? Because the infrastructure there is lacking. They like fiber optics, they like signal power, and as a result, having less income, as you will have inside government, will cause them to be unable to pay more penetration in these rural areas. It means that their alternative will be even more dangerous because their alternative is group like the Sinclair Group. The media company is rich but specialized only on the local issue with their biased view and their broken national report, and they will have no counterbalance whatsoever. At least in our side, with the amount of size and money that we have, we can penetrate this rural area as well, guaranteeing counterbalance. Finally, quality of journalism, ladies and gentlemen. Because the problem that we see in our side is the amount of good journalists, the amount of good reporters are decreasing, right? The one that can give a great coverage, know the right question, have investigative thing that they also claim to want. How to be one, ladies and gentlemen? You need to have more than just a journalism degree. You need to also have an understanding of the issue. That's why, for example, we are currently demanding people who own political degree or economic degree or science degree for that issue. Let's be honest, many people are pragmatic. Some might be altruistic, some might like journalism, but for many, journalism is a career option. The question is it worth it for them? And we think that it will not be as worth it if you don't have that kind of an income to give them high salary, ladies and gentlemen. What's the point if you're a science graduate to work in a technological portal in the economist if you can actually become an engineer or a consultant? We think that at least in our side, with better income, we can pay them better, and as well with that bigger salary, this can now become a career track that is an option for them, that they can become an editor and whatnot. At least this guarantee better quality of journalists entering, resulting in better coverage and investigation. Under those reasons, we guarantee quality of content, distribution, and journalists we proudly oppose.
Chair, if you look at it, majority of freedom of speech are a comparative between a lot of money versus no money. Because it seems like we don't really have nothing else left in our side. Meanwhile, the comparative in this debate is the standards in which it takes into account the ability for the journalists to operate, the standards that take into account the probability of you to search for news, versus an excessive income for unnecessary things that we have in status quo. Which is, I'm going to prove to you why, even when there is a cap, media can still survive without an unnecessary cost that we have to bear under our policy. In this speech, I'll answer two questions. Number one, why opposition distorts the function of media. Secondly, why media can still survive even when you have caps to directly engage with their case, right? But before that, one clarification, one sort of rebuttal that's not suited to the phrase, right? Because the last argument came from VM talking about the bigger salary, which I think is not important in this debate. Because first of all, in our proposal, of course, journalists would have a standard of minimum wage, ladies and gentlemen, for their prosperity of life. Becoming a journalist is not that like very poor and like give little money to you. The prosperity and the ability for you to live will still exist in government side of the house, so it's untrue that they're going to not have money at all. Second of all, notice that if the parameters is a bigger salary, this is dangerous. Because if your position are being determined by how much salary you got, that's the moment these journalists are easily being bribed by the politician that can say, I can increase your salary so long as you give some information that is in line with my interests. And there is something that is continuously become the problem in status quo because of the fact that we allow salary to be the tipping point of whether or not the news should be good or bad. And this is the reason why our urgency makes sense to put a cap also on that particular salaries. Given that, the first question in my speech is, why did this distort the function of media? The first thing that I'm going to rebut from opposition is the first nuance that came from the rebuttal from LO. He's saying that in status quo, there's not much problem because we have counterbalance like fact-checking, which means to say that the problem of biases and politicization that Hanum laid out is not a problem to begin with. I think first off, this rebuttal in and of itself is a principal concession that's hardly media is problematic to the fact that you have fact-checking, to the fact that you can continuously and you have to continuously check whether or not media is currently true or not politicized. But second of all, notice that saying fact-checking is not enough in this debate because what opposition have to answer is why people have ever the incentive to do fact-checking to begin with. Because we told you from Prime Minister that even when we have fact-checking, the dominance in the air time or in the news, ladies and gentlemen, are more likely the biggest corporations. So the fact-checking that we talk about are only having a spare times in the TVs or spare times in advertisement in comparison to the dominations of media corporation that exists in that particular regard. But thirdly, notice that you cannot say that we have ethical codes in status quo because now ethical codes sometimes can be twisted, ladies and gentlemen, by journalists and media corporations into saying that this is not a form of ethical violations of ethic, this is a form of freedom of expression, the way that we express particular things. So ethical code and the commission is easily twisted in status quo. But second of all, film tells us that Fox wants to give advertisement to the opposing side when they have more money, right? That's not true because we question what is the incentive structure of Fox giving a news for the opposing side given that the donors are more likely coming from their side. But second of all, even if it exists, notice that the information folks provide for the opposing political spectrum are information that are attack and antagonization. Because you know you have excessive money, so whatever information I would give to you, I can still attack it back by another information. This sense of not fearing of giving information are resulted from the ability for you to understand that have excessive money. And we think that it's about time for us to cap those money. Second of all, they told us, which is I'm going to jump to the sort of last analysis came from opposition, is that more money is important to reach the rural areas or the international news. I think first of all, notice that rural areas, like they can read local news as opposed to you as CNN from this city and giving the local news to Indonesians or like the people outside of their countries. Because I think rural areas and the people in it are more likely more related to the localized news as opposed to the international news that you imagine exists in your side of the house. But second of all, notice that giving information to rural area is not expensive. What is expensive is the basic infrastructures, things like internet and electricity. And it's not the responsibility of media corporation to build all of those basic infrastructures to begin with. That's why we don't think it's a governmental job to do that, ladies and gentlemen. That's why rural area and the news to provide for them is something that we don't have to consider in this debate. That's to conclude that in a world where you don't have cap, you allow the monopoly of big, rich corporations to continuously have more airtimes in providing information, which leads to biases that Hanum has already linked, and it results in the distortion of information, which is something that we don't want to consider. No. Second question, why media can still survive even without caps? Because opposition provides two benefits. First of all, it's about the content quality. Second, it's about catchy news, right? So first, let's talk about content quality. Look, if you want to go to war zone and like you want to have bodyguards and etc. and give information, we don't think money is the problem, right? Because you only have to lobby the locals, cooperate with them in war areas. Even in war areas, you're protected by UN peacekeepers, so you don't really need bodyguards to be able to guide you to gain that particular information. So we don't think that money is a problem on that side of the house. But second, entering these areas like war zone and conflicting areas cannot be solved by excessive money. It's about life and death, ladies and gentlemen. Even when you have excessive money, this not guarantee that we're able to gain information on their side. What does that indicate? It indicates that even when you have a cap, there is still a possibility of going to war zone, and there is still a possibility of spreading information in regards to it. Secondly, they talk about catchy news, and it's important to have catchy news. We think in our proposal, we can also give catchy news. The problem with status quo is that you give catchy news for a lot of and diverse news, and you make it catchy one by one, right? And that is problematic when you have a lot of news being catchy, because sometimes people cannot digest so much information at the same time. And that is what's being done when you have excessive money. Corporations continuously giving news for individuals, and it's difficult for people to relate and understand the news. In a world where you have cap, it forces media corporations to choose which informations are important and which information should we make catchy so that people can digest the information one by one, as opposed to giving all of the information at that particular point in time. Exactly opposition that makes the survivability of media threatened. Why? Because in status quo, you have to understand that people have a trust issue with media. That people don't really trust media because people think that media now are being bribed by politicians and being bribed by corporations. So it's important for you to send the nuance to the people that media can also be good, that media can also provide a neutral information, so long as that caps is the only solution to solve this problem for the media survivability we propose.
See, the biggest problem coming from government side of the house is the problem of political bubbles. But the problem is, does political bubbles exclusively come from media? We don't think so. Maybe media actually becomes a tool that is necessary and is progressing towards a tool that is breaking those political bubbles. Why? We think that political bubbles right now happens mostly not because of media, but because of many other internal factors of individuals. Number one, we think that families and friends are much stronger influences upon what you see and what you feel, because it's their closest quarters, it's who you talk and who you care the most. And internal discussions within family becomes the source of political bubble. Number two, religious affiliations like church and mosque that are dear to you, and the sermons that happens within there often boxes people into political bubbles. Number three, I think the most important thing is that media corporations are not the same as social media. And we think right now, society is being brainwashed by social media for several reasons. Number one, what Michael have told you, that people have short attention span and have a lot of things to do. But number two, nothing is because exactly of the addictive nature of media. Right now, a lot of politicians are using more and more social media buzzers for them to actually influence people. And we think that it's a much bigger and much harmful impact, because notice that the social media buzzers have very one-sided and very provocative content, different to the media, which I'm going to compare after this. But the consequence of this right now, social media and also internal politics within family and closer quarters are the main reasons why people are stuck within political bubbles and not mainstream media. And why is that the case? We think that in comparative, as biased as a media can be, as divided as a Fox and CNN can be, we think that people are more able to dissect information from both sides compared to their side. Yes.
Saying that there are multiple reasons why people become politically biased does not negate the fact that media corporations also contribute to the decision of people being biased.
No, I already talked to you about why society actually right now does not have many interest to watch news, because they are long, because they are on TV. While social media, in which they vote every day, in which the business of social media and cell phones are the dominant media and the dominant source of information that society and individuals have. And that's the comparative that they need to make. And it's very biased, and it's very polarized. But the comparative is that is that media can always be dissected better by society for several reasons. Number one, we think that it's a fact and they cannot deny it that Washington Post actually put an ad on the other side of the media to make sure that their campaigns become bigger. And notice the panels of CNN or Fox often invites panel and speakers coming from the other side as the ones that they ask questions in interviews. Now we agree that those interviews might be one-sided, but it at least shows and tries to be objective, and it just shows the opinion from the other side in terms of what the opinion is. Even if the other speakers, even if the anchors are bashing him or her, we think that in that point you have actual access towards these people to begin with. And why media has the incentive to do that? Because media is also market-based and they also want money, and therefore they want to expand their market towards the other side. They have also political ideologies, and that's okay because they also want to go to the other side. So it means that competition and counterbalance is something that's very viable and very likely to happen on our side of the house compared to their side of the house where it doesn't exist. They try to stop this debate by saying that we're comparing towards a non-existing media. But no, we don't think so, because we think 20% is already something that is crucial. Because, okay, we agree that CEOs are bastards, that they want profit. But the comparative is how do they use money. The less money that they have, if it's cut out by 20%, means less incentive for them to make the actual content, but rather towards themselves. More often they would more likely to accept backdoor deals on their side of the house. No thank you, because exactly they do not have enough capital, that 20% that they usually save for their own pockets. But what's the comparative on our side of the house, right? We think that there is no narrative that the media is already becoming fair by this one-off policy. So criticism and scrutiny exist on our side of the house. We think that different media try to point out and try to create investigative journalism to the other side, trying to point out, for instance, Fox pointing out that CNN is being paid by a Democrat and vice versa. These kinds of competition are more likely to happen when society already have a scrutiny and there is like strong media competition in play. On the side of the house, there's a false sense of security that we're already actualizing things, and we don't think that's good. But furthermore, ladies and gentlemen, even though you distribute these kinds of fundings towards smaller medias, we don't understand why these particular medias would actually be a strong counterbalance, for instance, of why would they not be infiltrated to begin with. In this, I'm going to bring the case study that we have about to you about rural areas, because this is something that's important. Because the case of Circular Media Group is that they control a lot of local medias, and these local medias are often small, but they benefit by this entire political group. Now, the consequence of when you cut, for instance, it means that these media, number one, it doesn't change that this media groups, Circular Media Groups, still are the ones that are beneficial in that particular area because they are the ones who already have infrastructure there. But furthermore, it lacks the ability for CNN and other media to actually go there and infiltrate them. Notice, because this happens not because of infrastructure like infrastructure that are created by government, but it happens because companies like AT&T, in which the way that television works, that you have to pay towards a provider of the television services, you have to pay to AT&T and to make sure that your programs becomes there. Now, what's the consequence and worsening political bubble on their side of the house? We think that what happens on their side of the house is that people have more limited choices because prices becomes more expensive. Because before you can pay you can pay AT&T towards having more diverse packages, right? Because AT&T already have money from CNN and Fox, for instance, so they don't have to charge more towards the society. Now, the consequence of that is, number one, it means that people are more often to be locked towards the media they already like, because they do not have any incentive to pay towards more expensive media than exists. Notice that the CEO are bastards on their side of the house also, and the consequence of that is they want to reap profit, so they make prices higher. So it means that if you are already stuck with one media, it's less likely if you are slightly inspired by the other side, you would want to purchase the other kind of media. But another consequence of that is we think that same kind of media still exists, and it means that local media still has a lot of influences. Like all the local groups and local newspapers, even if they are left by Circular Media Group, we think they still have the biases that is already inherent within the structures, within their company, within their narratives, and within their directors, ladies and gentlemen. It means that they are stuck like that. They are stuck with their political bubble, but bigger media has no capacity to make sure that they can infiltrate towards this particular society because they want to play safe because of this limited amount of capital. So the CEO can be raised, they want to play safe and only focus on Trump. But an additional cost that already satisfies the CEO, make sure that they have the incentive to do all of the good things that we told you. And notice that all of the penetration to a society that is bought of media, things like AJ+, that make sure that society does not no longer only consume social media but also news, can only happen with high quality of news. And that's the burden they have to prove on the side of the house. Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, speaking that when both Ilham and VM wants to break the bubble of individuals that come from both left and right, by having commercials in Washington Post or in Fox. It's a concession that right now media plays a very crucial role in determining how you believe and how you behave. Because your families, your religion, the way that they spread their values are not only by mouth to mouth, but usually through media like Fox, and they affirm those beliefs by watching these news actively. This is why when you are unable to change the media, you are unable to change social media, you are unable to change the religions. You do not have any burden to prove why social media will change on outside the house, but when you are able to prove to you that the media in it of itself is already a significant harm and benefit towards these individuals, we already take this. There are three things that I'm going to talk to you in the, on this way. First, let's talk about the content and why I think that high quality content can only exist on outside the house. Second of all, regarding accessibility, this is kind of minor because this is more of a Ilham extension. Lastly, I'm also going to talk about breaking the bubble, and I'm going to explain why it's important later on. Let's talk about the first thing. The explanation that comes from Vietnam is to say that rebels and military groups are dangerous situations, and the reasons why you need to have a bunch of money is to go to there. There are three responses to this. One, most likely, if the rebels and military groups, Hanum explained to you that right now the attack is going to be based on an average matrix of individuals and these corporations. So it means that if the average industries is going to go to Iraq, most likely your average budget can go to Iraq. Sit down, Freedom, and be polite. The second thing that you need to understand is that even if we do not have any problems and we cannot go there, most of the times we are unable to go there right now to some conditions. CNN does not send journalists to go to Syria and to go to Iraq. What they do is that they buy news from these war journals that is already there at the day. Meaning that the cost of this buying news is not as significant as sending bodyguards, having police, and having United Nations protections that existed on the side house. But lastly, even if that we need to shake off the argumentations and be polite, is the fact that right now we're going to have a longer time to collect these news that have, for example, rebels in Syria. Most likely we need to, I don't know, not room for 1 month to buy news that comes from these individuals. We think that is perfectly fine. Why? Because most of the times, the reasons why we hate Iraq news and ISIS news is because it is based on a very one systematic values rather than a holistic views on what the news is about. For example, when you say that 20 Syrians are killed in Syria because it's a breaking news, you are unable to tap and able to understand the gravities and the holistic views of that particular news. What happens on the side house, most likely sure, you are unable to go to breaking news, but you are going to have is a more holistic views because individuals and this news is going to collect their independence to get the most best advice that you're going to have. With that, news content and quality is going to be better on our side of the house. The second class, the reasons why this is particularly important is because of the fact that right now we say that the quality of news should not be judged and should not be judged by how many times that you cite ISIS, how many news that you produce, but the quality of the news should be given you a holistic views of that particular content. With that, they cannot win by only saying that you will have more news by only having no qualified news in comparison to outside. This is conceived by Ilham by saying that social media news sucks, and this is why we're not going to have social media news that exists. The second thing is that they say that media will be much more expensive because right now there are not going to be more companies going to do that. With that is perfectly false, right? If there are, for example, less competitions in news, there are not going to be any stagnant development of news. If Al Jazeera and Fox cannot, for example, expand towards California and other institutions, most likely private institution is going to tap into the market of that particular news, creating new, better, and for example, newer, better corporations of news that existed. So what you're going to have is not only singular news like, for example, CNN, BBC, or for example, you're going to have more news network like Sandi's, for example, or Hanum's, or Fian's. I mean, that is a much more better alternative in comparison to other side because these news will need to search for their own comparative advantages. What does that mean and what does comparative advantages mean? That means that you need to have different perspective and different ability to function peoples, and the way that you're going to do that is you're going to give mixed amount of perspective that able to be judged by these individuals. That does not exist when smaller news, for example, Sundays cannot compete with Fox or cannot compete with CNN because of the domination factors within that particular geographical locations that could only exist on our side of the house. The third reason why is a political bubble, and why we think that will break on our side house. Sure, yeah, if you have usually you can have something. Yeah.
why I said that not having content is spread among many areas not good enough, seeing that your first speaker also would like to have knowledge on many areas for her policy.
Sure. This is also why I said this. It is practically useless when you have a lot of news redistributed to all areas when that news is inherently biased and unable to be objectively valued. Because the purpose of news is not for you to know how many people died in Syria, but to be able to give you knowledge to decide what kind of policies that needs to be engaged in that particular area. So what does that mean? That means that on our house, we have the objective of certain news is to say that right now is to provide better filters for individuals, and it does not exist on the other house. Why is this important? Because we think that no matter what news that you give to these individuals, no matter what content, when this news is inherently biased, this is not the news that we need to support at the end of the day. This is why Fox News give a lot of headlines to President Trump, but we still hate Fox News because Fox News is a bullshit argumentation regarding bias that existed. On us at last year, you will have gradually, you will most likely in the starting time, we will have less news. But I already explained to you that most likely there are going to be private institutions that is going to expand in order to get more market anyway. Sure, it's not going to be Singtel, it's going to be other institutions. But that is inherently much better. It's going to be inherently much better in comparison to them. The second reasons why we did that is inherently false on this house to break the political bubble is exactly like what VNC is giving cashew phrases. Because the phenomenon matters, even if we think that people right now believe and they eradicate all of the news that existed in the current condition and simplifies it towards things that immigrants are bad because immigrants are rapists. I mean that catchy information should not be in the place of news activity. Sure, on our side of the house, most likely you're going to have lesser viewers and lesser individuals. Why is that perfectly fine? Because these lesser individuals are unable to express their biased feelings and are able to express their uneducated feelings without necessarily doing that. When you do not have the confidence and insecure about their knowledge, it is very more likely that they listen towards things like, for example, media or academia that are able to educate these individuals. They don't only depend towards a catchy phrase that you heard on internet or Twitter, that are able to say that I know about Syrian walls. We think there's a much more better alternative on our side of the house. We think that it's unfair for opposition to only praise like local news like Sinclair. Because the reasons why right now local news are owned by Sinclair because there is no cap to them. When Sinclair are able to donors, most likely on our side of the house you're going to have more companies going to them and able to expand. That does not exist on the side of the house. The diversifications exist. It needs to be judged not on the number of things that you have, but the quality of that news. Upon that government takes it away. Thank you.
I'm going to close this debate by talking about two things. One, I'm going to talk about how we best solve bubble. Secondly, how content will be delivered and why is it going to be most likely much better than our side. First of all, let's talk about how we solve bubbles. The main claim coming from government is the context of inequality of media. They claim that people are locked in a bubble and thus will never exposed to other opinions that comes under opposition side. We have several clues to this, such as for example, 24/7 coverage and overwhelming coverage and so on and so forth. But the fact that remains is that they have never sufficiently responded to the alternative that Frank has brought you. Things like fact-checking, competition, code conduct, and so on and so forth. I'm going to do this one by one, right? Let's talk about fact-checking first. The thing that you must realize is that in this specific context of liberal countries such as the United States, for example, people does not realize their own views within big corporations, ladies and gentlemen. Because note that the only source of you to get information are not only via big corporations, but you can also come with your communal community as well. You can do communal movement to counter those overwhelming narrative and so on and so forth. The context of this is that can be parallel is the context of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, right? Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez campaign is entirely crowdfunded, ladies and gentlemen, yet it is still able to breach Joe Crowley, which is funded by the Democratic establishment, who has much more media coverage and so on and so forth. We think that the power of people is sufficient to counter the overwhelming narrative at the end of the day. This becomes much more important given the context that Sam brought to you, that people right now are disappointed in Trump, ladies and gentlemen. They know that Trump oftentimes makes rash statements, false statements, and so on and so forth. And so wherever the incentive to do this does exist, and you don't require much money, you don't require much power, ladies and gentlemen. Media companies do not have the power to dictate what you can watch 24/7, ladies and gentlemen. We already people have the independence, and this independence will most often be exercised on the other side of the house. That's the first thing. Second of all, we think that competition is the point that has never been responded on their side. The thing is, Washington Post, like what Sam said, also advertised to right-wingers, ladies and gentlemen. They are skeptical about the incentive. We all get that there are
two incentives. One, obviously, is to make money because the more viewers they get, the more profit they get. Second of all, is because they are humans, ladies and gentlemen. Just like they said themselves, since media has political interest, most likely they will make this their life goal to influence people to other political views as well. What does this mean? This means that their side benefit is neutralized at the end of the day, because you have very big companies such as Fox News advertising to liberals, but at the same time you have companies like CNN advertising to conservatives, ladies and gentlemen. What this shows to you is that regardless of how much money you get as an income, we will most likely not able to shift the balance of conservative, of liberals. We think that all of these kinds of things is not mutually exclusive at all. Let's talk about their comparative. They claim that the comparative is local media, right? Two problems with this. Number one is that oftentimes local media has a limited issue coverage, ladies and gentlemen. Because exactly since they claim that local media will stick for comparative advantage, the comparative advantage they will have is a specific coverage of a local news. Like for example, rather than only report news that are happening in Bandung and not ones that are happening in Indonesia. If this is the case, then most likely, if it is something that is demanded, people will demand for it anyway, and thus you don't need any affirmative action to these companies in order for them to be able to survive at the end of the day, ladies and gentlemen. So we don't think that there is no urgency with this at all. But second of all, even when we talk about political issues, factually speaking, all of these local companies oftentimes follow what the big media said as well. Take an example of Suara Islam, right? Suara Islam in Indonesia is very conservative media that follows bigger media like Republika, ladies and gentlemen. Kompas have, smaller media followers such as Kata Kita and so on and so forth. The thing is, even though you have much bigger local media under their side of the house, most of them will promote the same narrative anyway, simply due to the fact, like Ilham said, that all of these political narrative is only one that is overwhelming to the extent that minority views will most likely not be able to have a demand to be viewed, to have a demand to be read at the end of the day. The conclusion of this is that their main case is about how we best look bubbles is at best neutralized, and moreover it can also happen on our side. Before I move on to my second question.
Fact checking usually done by communities and media. Like if they're already biased, they're not going to be hurt by opposing sides. In most of the times that right now media attack each other's political meaning. Why is a battle of credibility is better than a battle of analysis?
Here's the thing. I don't get why the battle of credibility or the battle of analysis parameters on the blog will be influenced by the virtue of them having more income. Because the thing is, you have powerful conservative media and powerful liberal media under our side, and under their side you have a weak conservative media and a weak liberal media as well. So we don't understand why the shift of balance will move to significantly change. We don't think that that is a logical thing to have proven on their side of the house. Secondly, let's talk about how content will be delivered. They claim under government that most likely the money that will be obtained on our side will be spent on unnecessary spending. However, what kind of unnecessary spending has not been explained under our side, under their side of the house. The important framework of thinking is this. There is a limit to which you can do a certain strategy in order to promote your media, ladies and gentlemen. If we talk about 24/7 coverage, you don't require infinite money to do so. You only require, like, for example, I don't know the specific quantity, like $1 million, $2 million or something, and you can spend the additional money on other strategies. Advertising is also not unlimited, ladies and gentlemen. What I'm trying to say with this is that most likely with the additional money that they have, they will do another new strategy that they have not done before, ladies and gentlemen. This is the reason as why VM and Ilham concepts become very important. Because we probably got the idea of making content that are more innovative. Things like approaching millennials, making it more catchy, that is not very widespread existing in the status quo. We are talking about distribution, ladies and gentlemen. Because even though right now we have reports about rural media, there are still lots of other villages in Indonesia that are still left undiscovered, ladies and gentlemen. We are talking about journalism. Because even though we have coverage about the Middle Eastern war right now, the fact still remains that we have not obtained full information about the war camps in Yemen, ladies and gentlemen. This shows to you that we do still need the additional money, and all of these things will be negated if in the instances in which they cut the income at the end of the day. What they claim as a response is that this is not mutually exclusive, because things like catchy news, rural coverage, and UN peacekeepers can also happen under government. Two responses. Number one, we are going to this line of logic is contradictory. Because if they really want to go with their case of limiting the power of media, they have to take this as a trade-off, ladies and gentlemen. And that is the burden they are not willing to take. But the second response to this, we argue that even if what they say is true, it's completely fine. Because at least the benefits that I have stated to you before will be further exponentiated, ladies and gentlemen. If in the past you are only able to cover one village, under our side you can cover 10 villages as well. We think that all of these things even further note of wanting the media to be a source of truth and a source of decision making for the people. We close the case of population.
There's a contradiction inside government. Some claim that it's okay that Al Jazeera cannot enter California, right? Let's just have Sunday's news and whatever its competitive advantage is. Now, this is weird. Exactly because what they want in the first speaker is basically more option and less bubbles at the end of the day. Like, there's an assumption there's very big and prevalent in their side that all local media or all small media is always good or better compared to bigger media. Note, ladies and gentlemen, that Breitbart is one of the small media, and I think we all know where that gives us, right? Okay, two things. One, how to deal with the too powerful media. Secondly, how to improve the media that we have today. Let's begin with how to deal with the powerful media. Because when we talk about how there are fact checkers, there are competition, and the way they engage are as follows. Number one, they claim, oh, this is principal concession, that there are bias. Yeah, we agree. Media do have political leaning. But the question is this is something that's on top of their head as well. We don't get why suddenly you lose all the leaning in their side as well, right? But secondly, they claim that media are too powerful and all-encompassing. Look, in their side, medias are all-encompassing anyway. The right still watch Fox, the left still watch Guardian. This is basically Ilham's content that he said that because there are family relation, there are social media, etc., you are still interacting within your bubble, so that's why you still watch Fox, you still watch Guardian. So, the question is, within the bubble itself, how do we get to counter it, ladies and gentlemen? This is where our arguments become relevant. Because what you have in ourselves when you have more money is that A, you can have even more experts and panel coming in. This is still Ilham's bubble that they don't engage with, so that at least you can have the other side's viewpoint. But secondly, we think that one of the things that we say is the fact that you can advertise yourself on the other side, right? So that your existence, your content can become known. This is strategy that's requires by Washington Post, for example. No, that all these engaging with the reality of the bubble that we have today aren't cheap. And I think this is an important comparative, right? Because Ilham's attention is basically, if media is profitable and if media would like to have profit, then the interest of these CEOs will be maintaining the profit that they have. You think that the fact that they have less profit means that they will no longer want to waste even more money on high-priced advertisement seen in the other channel or on inviting more panels just for the sake of catering to the other side, ladies and gentlemen. Because now you will just want to hold on the cover that you get, that you still have, because it is not yet capped, right? Alright, moving to the next point on how to improve media that we have today. Firstly, let's talk about quality, ladies and gentlemen. They claim that it's okay that you have less quality as long as there is the occasional good quality in every like 1 month or something. Okay, this is unacceptable, right? Why? Number one, because they also can see that policy making is something important. If you wait 1 month until you produce content, what has happened on the ground might be so much worse. It is more likely therefore that you are either too late or some issues simply missed or left away anyway, right? That's why it needs to be very quick. That means that all content must be seen and must continue to be packaged in good quality. But second is on the idea of depth that we talk about in the points of investigative journalism. Because this is something that requires money, ladies and gentlemen. If you buy news, you always think that there are always going to be a lack of quality if compared with your own credible journalists entering the war zone, guarded by bodyguards, ladies and gentlemen. But thirdly is on the idea of how to shape content. Because they claim that it's okay that not all content is framed to be videos like AG inside story due to the limited attention span that the people have. Yeah, we people do have limited attention span. This is exactly why what we require is even more focus on these people's attention span. What it requires is innovation and a focus on the things that are important, packaged in a way that the people will be able to not see it, ladies and gentlemen, and the people at least still have interest on it. And this is why we always need to have more and more hard talk. This is why we always need to have more and more of that story, so that the issue that matter that we see every day rising up is not forgotten by the people or simply swapped with cat videos. But secondly, we also talk about distribution, right? I explained on how penetrating rural area is expensive. Their engagement is simply saying that, oh, this is the job of TV. We agree, you do have TV, but are you able to pay it as media? And for them, what's the point of paying it if your income is more limited than ever? At least with more income, there's an interest to penetrate this rural area, and it's something that you also get in ourselves. So, we distribute it better, we generate the content better, and we prevent bubble better. We probably
Think of it this way. If it's true that in opposition they have competition between big, rich, privileged media corporations to be able to provide counterbalance to each other, we agree that exists. But notice the competition between media corporations and status quo are competition based on money. that your money dictates the true and the accuracy of the information, which is the competition that we're not willing to defend on our side of the house. Because we can see that media needs excessive money like what they said. But if media exceeds the cap in which what you claim would likely to exceed, is that if it exceeds the cap, we can allocate those excessive money to the local medias and to empower the smaller medias on our side. That's why we don't think there's any significant harm they prove. Why even if there's an allocation of budget, media will not be very excessive either. I'm going to simplify this debate into 2 questions. First of all, does media need excessive money to make content? Second, even when it's true, they need excessive money, why is still that? Firstly, so opposition's case relied on the fact that we need money to make qualified content of news, to make qualified content of news. We told you from the government side of the house that we can do that even with our excessive money. We told you making catchy news and thorough content does not require so much money because our caps also take into account your operational costs and your ability to make journal as well. The problem with status quo is that do not assume that excessive money is being good for always good purpose. Because opposition's case seems to be very lenient. That all of the money are going to be for good purpose, going to be good for every good purpose either way. Because in status quo, it's not for noble purpose. Sometimes they use it for unnecessary things like advertisement to kill another companies, clickbait to gain people's attention, simplistic of news to regenerate their profit. Because if they're not doing these unnecessary things, their profit are not going to be regenerated. Because if they do it for all of the noble things, their profit is going to decrease. So the only way in which they can regenerate the profit is exactly doing these unnecessary things to continue their profits. So even we can tell you from government side of the house that going to Warsaw in this noble argument of opposition does not have any relations with more money. It's a question of life and death, which is not buyable by money either, ladies and gentlemen. Even if opposition have money for good purpose, they use it to give continuous information which are very much in a single day, which we told you sometimes can be dangerous because giving people full throttle of information in a day sometimes is difficult to be digested by individuals, which is harmful. In our proposal, when you have a cap and you understand that we're not having excessive money, you are forced to pick content that are more urgent to be talked about, ladies and gentlemen. We're forced to create news that are catchy, but news that are necessary in status quo, as opposed to giving diverse information for the same headings and for the same information in 3 different articles, which we don't think is good on that side of the house. The burden that opposition had to defend is why in every instances, the money is being used for the good purpose, which is not always the case, something they needed to deal with. But even if, at best in their side of the house, news are very good, in good purpose, we told you still it's bad. Because it results into the asymmetry of information. Because just because you have more money, that automatically means your news are the truest. Meanwhile, it may not always be the case. Sometimes smaller corporations might also provide good news. But just because they're small, they're now being delegitimized out of their information. They said, we have a lot of alternatives. We agree that your alternative exists. But this debate is about degree of comparative. Because in a world where you have media corporation that is rich, they're always going to overcloud and catch the spotlight to all of your fact check on your side. So we would told you, what they never answer is why people would have the incentive to reach for this alternative for fact checking and etc. Given that this corporation dominates every single corner of your life, ladies and gentlemen. But this is the weirdest thing from Kushay. Saying Alexandria Cortez win the election is a concession that spreading information does not require much money to the fact that you can win the elections even beating those who are in privilege enough. So the conclusion is that we already take this debate since we told you that money should never be a parameter to judge a news, but even if it does, there's some house arms in further. Thank you.